Crystal Graham. I'm joined here by Amy Wells, who is a fellow Hokie. We both graduated from Fort Defiance High School and then also Virginia Tech. But Amy's done something pretty remarkable. She's written a book. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, thank you.
So I thought we'd start a little bit about talking a little bit about the book that you wrote, and it's very specific. It's very Amy because what I'd like to say is you're one of the most positive people that I've ever known, and that's really what the book portrays, I think. But it also portrays something rather interesting, and that's that you were the HokieBird during your time at Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
So, you were one of the first women, the first woman to actually wear the costume kind of as it is now. How does it feel like to be able to put down some of those experiences that you had at Virginia Tech into words for other people to kind of experience what you did?
Yeah, it was actually the writing of the book was so fun for me to be able, it was almost like I was reliving my time as the Hokie bird, like I was being able to be the bird again. Going back and talking about the tryouts, talking about different experiences I had. When people find out I was the Hokie bird, there's often some pretty frequent questions that are answered. So I tried to answer those questions, and then sort of just went through some different experiences. I had some that were really awesome, some that were not as awesome, and just shared those, and then connected. Like you said, the positivity, that all of that, like following dreams and stuff. That's all something that's just really important to me, and then connected life lessons that were similar to the different things that I experienced as the bird, and that's kind of what I wanted to accomplish with the book. Like people typically are really interested in, what it's like to be a mascot. So I wanted to share that, but I wanted it to be more than just experiences that I had. I wanted it to be something that, I'm very clear that the social climate in our country right now is a little rough. So I think everybody can use some positivity and encouragement and whatnot. So that was kind of what I wanted to accomplish with the book.
So the book Pursuit, I'm going to try to get it in here. Learning important life lessons as a mascot. You kind of kept the title a little more broad, but of course the appeal, at least initially, there's a lot of Hokie alums that are buying the book, right?
Right.
So I thought, first of all, we'd go for full circle because the funny thing is, I was a journalism or a communications major at Virginia Tech, and I remember one time hearing that you were the Hokie Bird. Though we went to high school together, we really didn't connect that much in college. And I remember reaching out to you, and you may not remember this, but because I was in a journalism class and we were just supposed to write about something related to Virginia Tech, and I didn't know that you weren't allowed to talk about being the Hokie Bird. So you told me that. So it's funny, it's full circle now in the sense that here we are today and you're finally
Right.
able to talk about your experiences. So it's very cool. I thought we would start with something that you do talk about in the book, and I'm not going to spoil everything for people who are reading it, but I
Really
thought
good.
maybe you could talk about that first encounter that you had as a 14-year-old with the Hokie Bird.
Okay. Yeah, this is actually how the book starts. My brother is 4 years older than me, and he also went to Virginia Tech. And when we were moving him, moving day at any college is insanity, and Tech is no different. It's a very large school, and we had to take all of the stuff out of the vehicles and put it on a sidewalk, and then move your car. And I was assigned the sitting with all of the things while his loft bed was put together so that then the stuff could be moved to his room. And when I finally was allowed the opportunity to carry something to his room, the Hokie Bird met me at the door to his dormitory and, played around with me. And which, as a 14-year-old, going to be freshman in high school, I was way too cool for all of it. But inside, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, it was equal parts totally humiliating and totally awesome at the same time. And the Hokie Bird, there were no elevators, so we had to go up all the stairs. And, the Hokie Bird stopped and interacted with people on the way, but just continued carrying the suitcase all the way up for me. And it was the coolest. And very literally from that point on, I wanted to be the Hokie Bird. I specifically went to Virginia Tech partly because my brother went there and it's kind of a contagious thing once you have family that
Mhm.
goes there. But I specifically went wanting to be the mascot, which is kind of weird. Not many people can say that.
Well, and I think, one thing is, we talked a little bit about how you were, the first woman in this suit. It's heavy, and you were a three-sport athlete at Fort Defiance. I think you're in the Sports Hall of Fame there. I wonder how that athleticism kind of played into you being the Hokey Bird. Like, do you think it gave you an advantage?
Oh, for sure. Like, I mean, I think people assume that it's hot. I don't know that people really understand. And this, again, this is something that I talk about in the book. The suit itself is so large. Like, your movements have to be really big or they get swallowed up. And it is indeed heavy. I can remember an away game at Boston College and it poured the whole game, and you don't get to not be out there. And the suit, I mean, the hands were just like hanging off. They Velcro and they were just hanging off of me. And it was so heavy. So absolutely, the athleticism that I carried from high school in was a definite benefit. I mean, once I was the bird, I could probably have changed that. But if nothing else, in the week-long tryouts, being in some decent physical shape was definitely to my benefit. Because I mean, it is definitely hot. It's nothing to lose like 5 pounds of water weight during a football game. It is very physically demanding for sure. It takes a lot of hydration and a lot of preparation, beforehand so that you can, do what you need to do while you're in the suit.
Well, let's go back to those tryouts because you do talk about a little bit about that in the book as well. And one of the things that you said was that you were among 14 people that auditioned. You found the flyer in the spring of your freshman year. What were there other women that were also trying out at that time?
Honestly, I think that there were. I don't remember there being many. I think it was mostly males, but honestly, I can't. I wish that I remember that, but I don't fully remember, like,
You know,
numbers wise.
I don't want to say we're getting old, but we graduated in 1999 from college,
The
so
memory is not
yeah,
quite as there.
it's all of that.
Yeah,
So what people may not realize though is 14 people auditioned and there was one spot, right, on the
one spot.
roster. Wow.
That's right. Right. When I was there, there were only two HokieBirds. I know I've been able to talk to a couple of recent graduates, and it's vastly different than that now, just because they sort of canvass much more than what we did. But there were only two, so correct. There was only one spot available that we were trying out for. Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about what it felt like the first time you went and kind of experienced that. But I'm going to share a really funny story with you first,
Okay.
because of course I was in Blacksburg at the same time that you were.
Right.
I had to work full time, well, almost full time while I was in college, and I worked at the Harris Teeter, which you may remember there. And what's funny about that is one day I suited up as a chicken. And it was on a football day. And the reason I did it, I think I was getting paid like time and a half or double time or something to
Yeah,
do it. And I was like, yeah, I'll make that extra money.
of course. Yeah.
But it wasn't glamorous at all. And so it was on a football game day when everybody was rolling in to tailgate and that kind of thing. And I was holding up a sign like, kind of like buy chicken kind of thing here. And I remember something happened to me, and I want you to talk about this in a minute too. But I remember somebody threw a drink at me, and that was the final straw. I stepped away. I was like, yeah, this is not for me. I worked in the accounting office at Harris Teeter. I was not going to stand by the street. But I imagine your experiences, though there was one we'll talk about in a minute, but most of your experiences when you put that suit on for the first time as an official Hokey Bird, I imagine that was a very positive thing.
It was very positive. I think so in the summers, we were part of the cheerleading squad. So we would go to summer cheer camp in Myrtle Beach, which as a mascot is a delight. I
Yes.
talk about I talk about that a little bit in the book. So that was actually outside of the tryouts are a week long, just to get everybody chance to get in the suit. Like, there's a consistent Hokey Bird walk we were expected to know. Um, and it, just to give people, and we had to learn a dance routine that the high techs made up. So just to give people a chance to practice in the suit, and give some sort of a fair shot before we actually did our tryouts. So I had a little bit of time then, but really camp that summer was the first time, which wasn't super glamorous because like you said, you were a chicken. Like nobody really relates to the chicken. Like there is something specifically magical about Virginia Tech fans. And so, yeah, that first football game, getting in the suit and being on the field, like it's just, I don't, it is very surreal. Especially having this have been something that I wanted to do for 4+ years. Like, yeah, it was magic. Like, and I know that sounds weird maybe to people, but it is, I mean, to be a character that instantly brings so much joy to people, I mean, it's the best. I mean, clearly not away fans, but for hockey fans, it is genuinely the best feeling. And if I ever got in that suit in a bad mood, it didn't last long because people just love to see you, and it's the greatest.
Well, we were there, of course, when Virginia Tech was dominant in
Yep.
football. Frank Beamer was the coach. There was Michael Vick was on the team. There was a lot happening, lots of national attention,
Right.
that kind of thing. So one of the things you talk about in the book that I think your mom, Donna, had some reservations about was the first time that you did the crowd surfing. So
They
talk
don't do
about that
that
because
anymore.
Lane Stadium is scary because it's, like when I remember the first time I had tickets and they were way in the upper deck and you had to walk like straight up to get
Yeah,
there.
it's steep.
Yeah. So what
Yeah,
was that like for you?
it was, well, first of all, they don't crowd surf anymore.
Mhm.
I was at a number of football games this year, and I was so sad to not see that happen. And I asked some of my friends who live in Blacksburg and who are regulars, and they were like, "Yeah, I've never really thought about it, but they don't. I guess it's a liability thing." So I feel very
Yeah,
honored to
sure.
have been able to do it. But so yeah, like when it was an obvious that we were going to win the games, which, like you said, we were there during a very prominent time. Unfortunately, we graduated in May, and the
Hmm.
team went to the national championship in December or January, and
Right.
we missed it just slightly. But the lead in was incredible as well. But we would crowd surf, and you would go over to the student section, and the students would basically sort of lift you up and pass you up the stands. And yes, my mom was always worried that they were going to throw me over the top. And I'm like, these are Hokie fans. Of course, they're not going to do that. There's also a police officer that stands up there. But physically doing that is extraordinarily demanding. And then the getting back down to the field is really hard because you've got these really big feet. And then, the stairs in lane change. Like sometimes they're short and chunky, and then other times they're like long and more slender. So that was a challenge. But the exhilaration of being passed up and like the student body coming together to make sure the HokieBird doesn't get dropped. Like it was there's so many cool experiences, but that was definitely a really fun one. Yeah.
So I talked about a drink being thrown at me. You had one experience when you were at an away game. I think it was an away game, and where an opposing football player, I think, might have punched you, but you moved on. You moved on from that. I thought you could just talk a little bit about that because as much as there were so many great memories, I think people forget that there's like a little 5'8", frame. You're probably what, 120, 130 pound person right underneath that
Right.
suit.
Well, I think most people assume it's a guy. I think
Mhm.
that and which is really kind of bizarre, especially now. I mean, I think Tech has equally as many, if not more, females serving as the Hokie Bird than males. But I think the assumption is that it's a guy, and it's an easy thing to take a pot shot. And yes, a football player did do that. And then, yeah, at an away game, the I was with the cheerleading squad, and we were walking across a parking lot, and rocks were being thrown at us by the team, by the home school where we were playing. And then later in that same game, a fan opened a beer and threw it at the bird. And yeah, like there are things that aren't the best, and then you quickly realize you need to reposition yourself with your fans and get
Very.
away from the visiting teams. I will say, people, I won't say who those two schools were. It was not UVA. I will say that because people have asked me, and I'm like, I never had anything but positive interactions with in-state rival. But yeah, most of the experiences are good and positive, even with away teams. Like, I was very fortunate and got to go to bowl games all 3 years that I was the HokieBird for football. And those were always really fun because it was just a positive, fun vibe. There wasn't, that sort of like angry rivalry. So most of the experiences were good. Occasionally, there was one or two that weren't the best, but yeah, they were mostly good.
You shared, I think the best line in the entire book was about your two daughters. And when you went back to Virginia Tech, you said that one of them said, and I want to make sure this is right, would people here know you are famous? I imagine, you've told your daughters stories about being the Hokey bird and everything like that, but you probably are, people probably don't, know when you're on campus. You're probably just any other fan, right?
Right, right. Actually, just recently, we have season tickets to the women's basketball games. And um, at the last game, because the students aren't there, they were looking for people to do games on the court. And,
Mhm.
the guy made eye contact with me, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And, myself and three children went down to play a game. But as we were, they were sharing things about them that the guy could share while we were doing the game. And I told him I was the Hokey Bird, and he announced that while I was on the court. And it was so fun because I mean, they're, athletes are known. When you serve as something that's completely covered and you literally cannot tell people that you serve in that role, that's a big deal to keep the anonymity and the actual like character of the bird in place so it's not doesn't become the individuals that are in the suit.
Mhm.
Um, it was just, I mean, we do, tradition is that you wear the feet at graduation, and people notice, people do notice that. But it's a very sort of thankless position. Like, you don't get accolades, you don't get thanked because people don't know it's you. So to be able, to be on the court at the basketball game and have him share that, that was really fun. I'm not somebody who needs a lot of praise, but it is fun when people find out that you had that role, because typically people are like, no way, that's so cool. Because there's not that many people that have done it. It is a kind of tight knit, just a small group of people. And it was the coolest. It really was.
Yeah, so and so one of the things is in the book, and I want to touch on this just a little bit too, is that beyond the experiences, you really kind of say how they set you up later in life. What we talked about, that lessons learned aspect. Maybe if you could talk a little bit about that, because again, because we went to high school together, I follow you on Facebook. I know how positive you are, like in everyday life. But I think that people who don't know you, you really captured that in the book.
Oh, thanks. Like I said, I am a big fan of like Rachel Hollis and Jen Hatmaker and the way that they write and share stories of their life. And even if it wasn't the greatest experience, how it turned into something they were able to learn from. And I, I always thought that I would write a children's book, truly. And I've wanted to do this for about 10 years. And I was running one day, and the idea for this book just like came out of nowhere. And within like 30 minutes, I had the chapters and the lessons that I wanted to go together. And I'm like, don't know that I necessarily came up with this book. I think it was sort of given to me from places beyond. But the like I said, the learning part, the lessons part was every bit as important to me as the sharing of, what I experienced as the mascot. The first thing I talk about is this dream that I carried with me. And the fact that, you mentioned that I played sports, like through high school, I never really like wanted to accomplish something that didn't get accomplished. Like, my senior year, our volleyball team won the state championship. My doubles partner and I won the state championship. And I don't say that to brag at all. It's just, I never really faced the agony of like having a dream that didn't come true. And so knowing that this was a dream of mine for so long, when tryouts, when I saw that flyer, I definitely hedged for a bit, wondering like, what if this doesn't happen? Like, am I going to be okay with this not coming to fruition? And luckily, my roommate was somebody who went to Fort Defiance with us, and she was like, Amy, you have to at least try. Like, this is something that you've wanted to do for so long. And so, you know, that's the beginning of the book. And the idea, the lesson there is we have dreams for a reason. Like, if it's something that's in your heart, like, you owe it to yourself to at least try. It may not work out the way you want, but I'm a big person in I would rather try and have it not work out rather than live in regret that I never even gave it the effort.
Mhm.
So that's, and the story of, getting punched in the face by the football player, the lesson for that one is that, like, we have no idea what's really going on in people's lives. Social media presents these highlight reels that you think everybody's life is perfect, and it's absolutely not. And, just this idea that when in doubt, like, just be kind. And if you can't be kind, just be quiet. So the coming up with the lessons was so, like, once I started thinking of the things that I wanted to share, the lessons just like perfectly aligned so easily for me. And yeah, and I hope that it does serve, as some sort of an inspiration or some sort of as a, motivator of, yeah, I am gonna, go after this or whatever. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, you had two big dreams. You had the dream to be the bird, which you accomplished, and the dream to put a book out, whether it was a children's book or this
right.
book, and you accomplished both. This was a little bit more challenging for you because it's not just writing the book and putting it on Amazon for sale. It's you had to get some licensing and that kind of thing. So you had to go back to Virginia Tech and make your pitch, right?
Yes, indeed. When I finished writing the book, I contacted Virginia Tech alumni, and they put me in the direction of branding and development. And I was very swiftly told that in order to do anything like this, I would have to apply and get collegiate licensure because the HokieBird is copyrighted, just the words, obviously the images too. But even if I didn't use any images at all, I would have to have licensure to use the word HokieBird, to use the word Hokies, things like that. And yeah, so, and I kind of got the impression that this wasn't maybe something that was going to be like super supported. And I'll talk, and not that Virginia Tech was bad, because I will talk about that in a second. But I applied, so I finished writing the book in the summer of 2022. I applied for licensure in April of 2023. And in case anybody wants to know, it took me a while because I'm just a person. I'm not a company applying for licensure. And the process was confusing. And I sort of shut down at one point and was like, this just isn't worth it. Like, so I don't want anybody to think that I'm just like, get it done, because I definitely had my doubts throughout this process. Um, Applied for licensure in April of 2023. Um, it said that the licensure process was a 12 to 15 week thing. It took almost 20 months to
Oh,
process through licensure. It did involve going back to Virginia Tech, meeting with branding and development. Um, the university is very, very careful about the HokieBird. Understandably, it is the most noticed symbol of the university. I was asked if I signed a non-disclosure statement as a college student, and I'm like, and luckily, I'm still friends with my partner, my HokieBird partner. So I texted him, and I'm like, did we do this? Like, I know what it is now, but I'm not sure I would have known as a
yeah.
freshman in high school. I mean, a freshman in
Mhm.
college. And he was like, no, we didn't do that because it just wasn't as protected when we were there. Like, it wasn't the same legal world that it is now. And, because they indicated that had I signed a non-disclosure, I would not be given permission to write this book because it would extend ongoing. So hallelujah, I did not sign a non-disclosure. I didn't have to. Um, so branding and development, I went down and met with them, gave them the book. They read the book. Virginia Tech Athletics read the book. The cheerleading team, the high techs, the dance team, and the HokieBird are now considered the Spirit Squad. The person who coordinates that read the book, and finally was almost a full year later from my application date, was told that Virginia Tech had approved the book, and I was so excited, and I was sure I was done with licensure. I was not. Then I went to phase two of licensure, where I had to secure $1 million in liability insurance, which wasn't easy because insurance companies are a little hesitant to insure books for fear you're going to defame somebody's character in that book. So that was a process too, sort of talking through different insurance companies, letting them know that like I am a positive person. I have no intent. The only people I mentioned by name in the book are Frank Beamer, Bud Foster, and Bud Foster and Billy Height, who were the coaching staff when was there and were wonderful to me. Um, and that then, went through. I started working with a self-publisher, and my hope was that licensure and self-publishing would be sort of going along parallel and would sort of converge at the end. And that's exactly what happened. And with bowl season was in there, and people were trying to get a lot of collegiate licensure for clothing for bowl games. And I just kept hearing from the licensure company, nobody has done this before. Like our legal team doesn't know exactly what to do with this, so it's taking longer to process through this. And people ask, like, did you think about giving up? Absolutely. Even as recently as like October of 2024, I'm like, maybe I just strip it down. Don't use the word HokieBird. Don't use the word Virginia Tech. Don't mention the colors orange and maroon. Don't use the word Blacksburg. Just keep it really generic. And luckily, I had two really good friends, one who's known me since we went to elementary school, and another one who knew me really well at Tech. And my parents also were like, this is not the process you started. You didn't start this process to make it generic. Like, and my dad said to me, he was like, so you've jumped through all of these hoops. Why would you stop jumping now? Like, you've come this far, why would you quit when you're so close? And it all happened. I think I obtained licensure on like December 20th, 21st. And then the book was available on Amazon Christmas night. So it was like, at the end, it was like boom, boom, boom. And it was all done. And yeah, to see that book actually on Amazon and to see it in people's hands. And I actually saw it on my Kindle the other night. And I just like, I don't know. It makes me very emotional. Like it is a decade-long dream that has actually come to fruition, and it's the coolest. So yeah.
Yeah, your Christmas present for this year and probably many to come, right? So you
Exactly.
said you've also heard from a couple of former HokieBirds who've reached out to you and kind of thanked you for blazing the trail for them women that have been
Yes.
HokieBird since you.
Yes. The night that I did that basketball game that I was on the court, on the way back to my seat, a female bird who graduated last year stopped me, and we sat and talked for a while, and it was fun to talk to her and sort of compare notes about what has changed and what hasn't changed. And then another one sent me a Facebook message, and she had seen the thing that WHSV did, and she just reached out, and she was like, thanks for opening the door for us. And the thing is, I don't know that I necessarily did anything, but a friend of mine said, you followed your dream and you're talking about it now, which, helps other people follow their dreams. So anyway, it's just, and I know, Tech does a really cool reveal video now at the end of every year where they highlight the graduating seniors that were the HokieBird. And for the last 2 years, it's been 3 girls that have
Mhm.
all graduated out. And so clearly there's a lot of females in the role, and it just makes me happy.
Yeah, following people who have been sharing pictures of them with the book, everybody wants to know when they can get your autograph. I'm sure your daughters definitely know you're famous now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Well, it's
No,
just,
no,
yeah.
the
And
experience.
Claire, one of my daughters, is on the front cover. There's a picture of her on there. And yeah, it's pretty cool for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, did I see your parents on there too? Did I see your mom on there maybe?
Yes, on the front cover also, the first picture that my family ever had taken with a HokieBird, that was at the I think it was the Liberty Bowl in Shreveport. That's on the front cover, and then on the back cover, there's also a picture. They both have sweatshirts. One says the bird's mom, the other says the bird's dad, and there's a picture of the back of their sweatshirts and on the back cover as well. And that leads the cover of the book was one, through the process, through the immense frustration of why is this not happening faster, the cover of the book served as such a highlight for me and such a just something that took my mind off the frustration of the process. I always thought I would just use a picture of the HokieBird, and I was having trouble getting some pictures that were okay to use that I didn't take because I would have to have the photo credit and all that stuff. And one day I was like, wait, I know so many people who would have pictures with the HokieBird. And so I put on social media, I asked people to send me pictures that they had, and people just respond. It was the coolest. Within an hour, I had plenty of pictures. And so, to have a picture of a guy that I taught with, of he and his wife with the bird at their wedding, and to have people I know whose kids are on the back cover with the HokieBird, it's just like the front cover are pictures that are special to me. A couple pictures of me in the suit doing things with the cheerleaders. And, like I said, my daughter, my parents. And then the back cover is a number of pictures of people that I know. And so, I'm like, I hope that especially these kids, think it's pretty cool that they're on a book, and they can show their kids someday and whatnot. So the cover was really fun for me to create.
And when we were at Virginia Tech, of course, that was before cell phones and this dead digital era that we're in now. So I'm sure we don't have as many photos with the bird from that era.
Right.
If you've gone back to basketball games, like you said, you
Yeah.
have football games, yeah, maybe. But yeah,
Right.
so because I remember when you put that call out, and I was like, do I have a picture with the bird? And I don't think I do anywhere.
I don't have any pictures of me as the HokieBird. The two that I included, a friend who was a cheerleader when I was the bird sent those to me.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I literally have none. Like, I'm sure my parents maybe have some, but I don't have any here in this house of me in the actual suit. So yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure right now, you're still in the midst of kind of sharing the word about the book and that kind of thing. But so what's next for you? Would you do this again? Would you do a children's book now, knowing how much you had to go through with licensure and that kind of thing?
I would because the process isn't as foreign to me now. So when they ask me to give them my disclosures, the first time I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Now I know what it means. So the process should be a little easier. And, I jokingly say, like, I could write a book about the process of writing this book. So, if any other HokieBirds ever want to do this, I can serve as a consultant. But no, I for sure still want to do a children's book about just encouraging kids to follow their dreams. I think kids are really good at doing that. And then as we get older, somehow we learn that, like, our dreams don't matter, or we're maybe not good enough to try and pursue that, or we're not worthy enough to try and pursue that. So I definitely would love to write a children's book. And I know a good guy from high school that would be great at illustrating that.
Believe it or not, that very same person helped me. At one time, I had a concept of a children's book and helped me bring it to
Oh, I
fruition,
love
so to
it.
speak. So we didn't actually move forward with it, but we did have some initial sketches. It was really fun. So
That's
um,
cool.
yeah, yeah. Well, so 25 years in the making, you finally now get to share all your experiences as the Hokey Bird. You can't talk when you're the bird, but you can talk now.
That's right. That's
All
right.
right, Amy Wells, thanks for joining us. The book, Pursuit, Learning Important Life Lessons as a Mascot, is available on Amazon, paperback, hardback, or Kindle version. Amy, thanks for your time today. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
All
See you
right.
later.
Bye-bye.